Hello. Hi, Kathy. Hi, Nancy. Buenos dias, Allie. Welcome. Here we are. I was 1 minute late, so that's why there was nothing happening, but I am here. We are here. And as always, excited to be here with you all today. How's everybody's day going so far? Where are you joining in from? If you care to bring your name and bring your voice into our space, even if you don't feel like interacting at all, you are equally welcome. Yes. So we can drop in together into this beautiful sacred space with gratitude, with presence, love, and belonging. We have a wonderful, powerful topic for today, and I might draw a couple cards in conjunction with the topic. We will see how it flows. Welcome, Ileana. Great to see you. And this is, as I said, really powerful to notice what we're going to be talking about today, the hidden cost of carrying everyone else's expectations. How many of you have felt like you've lived a life for others and not yourself? Because that is the hidden cost. I'll just go ahead and give the answer first so we can stop right now. But no, we'll dive a lot deeper in. Eliana, definitely. And you know, we have such sophisticated problems these days, right? And it's wonderful. And if we think about most of humanity's history, we were just trying to survive and not die, right? So things were different then. Family expectations, survival. And so now we have remnants of that, which is fine, right? So those of you that have married, had families, had children, there's going to be an element of, you know, obligation and duties. So it's not necessarily like this cut and dried black and white thing in that sense. And there's still a place for those of you that have chosen that, to where you can still look at where are you living for others, where are you carrying other people's expectations. So there's a way to balance, there's a way to be healthy with that. Yeah. Hi, Michelle. Ooh, a mindfulness recovery meeting. Is that Recovery 2.0 by chance, or maybe against the stream, or another one of the Buddhist recovery organizations? I love that we have all that now. And yes, an unspoken expectation is a premeditated resentment. I love that. Thank you for bringing that in. the higher our expectations, the higher our chances of having a resentment. Ooh, Allie, so are you listening to All the Way to the River by Elizabeth Gilbert? And has anybody else read/listened to her latest book? Hi, Drazel. Shalom. Barbara, good morning. Mindfulness and recovery. Great. I love that we have all of these resources. I am a long-term 12-step member, so great. So if there's anybody new here, I'm Natalie, spiritual life coach and Reiki master teacher. Been a teacher here on Insight Timer for 5 years now. Been a spiritual life coach for over that length of time, a bit longer than that. And a person in long-term addiction recovery, 27 years, free from alcohol and drug addiction, 5.5 years free from sugar addiction. And we'll throw in cigarettes. I was addicted to cigarettes, free from that since 2001. So I have some success in quitting things, and it doesn't solve all of our problems, but it definitely has prolonged my lifespan and given me a quality of life that I couldn't have dreamed of before. So that's a little bit about me. If you're new, you can follow me here on Insight Timer. I'm also double live streaming this on my YouTube channel, and all of my replays are there, so you can revisit those or visit, there's hundreds of them probably by now over in YouTube. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, check out my website, and all of that is here in Insight Timer. If you go to my teacher profile, there's an About Me link that goes to all of my links. So if you're curious, you can do that. Oh, Recovery Dharma. Okay, Michelle, amazing. Barbara, 24 years alcohol free. Hi, Deirdre. Thank you. Glad you're here as well. And yes, wherever we go, there we are. Kathy, for sure. And for me, as somebody who's lived as an expat and a digital nomad and a remote worker and location independent for 13 years, I do think I'm an expert at the idea of wherever you go, there you are. So, yeah, in AA we call it doing a geographic cure. How many of you have done, if you're in recovery or not, but how many of you have thought moving your actual physical location would solve some of your problems or all of your problems? And how many of you have found out that doesn't happen? It works briefly, and then it doesn't. So yes. So as I said, our live stream is called The Hidden Cost of Carrying Everyone Else's Expectations. And as I was feeling into this and reflecting on it this morning before beginning, I was reminded of a book called The Top 5 Regrets of the Dying. And I'm sure some of you are familiar with that book. What I take away from that is the number one top regret of the dying, which is, I wish I would have lived a life true to me rather than a life others expected of me. I wish I would have lived a life true to myself rather than a life others expected of me. So it totally fits into our topic of the hidden cost of carrying everyone else's expectations, which to me, that's the number one cost. So, hi Joanne. Hi Alicia. Yay! Great to have you. Hope you've had a wonderful time. And yes, Michelle. And I talk about this often. I'm a fan of Michael Singer, as I know some of you here are. And, you know, Michael Singer's biggest teaching really is this idea, or I'd say one of his top 3 teachings, is ceasing to look at the external for us to feel better, right? So changing that propensity to look for something outside of ourselves, something outside of us needs to change. We need something to happen. We need something to stop happening. We have a preference that creates suffering inside of ourselves. So it's a disentangling process of ceasing to holding on to the external and coming back to ourselves and to our interior. So definitely. And yeah, if you don't know Michael Singer, just quickly, many of you, if you don't know him, you probably know this book, The Untethered Soul, which is a spiritual classic. So as far as our topic for today, how many of you feel like you carry invisible weights? And they might not even be defined until right now. When I name them, when you think about them, do you have family expectations, cultural expectations, religious, societal expectations about who you feel you need to be? So we're going to look at these, notice them, look at the cost of them. How do these expectations drain our energy? And then what can we do? How can we release these things that kind of just encroached upon us, that we took on? And, you know, I do want to say that, like, this isn't about blaming and shaming and, you know, as I always say, like, this sort of awareness, it cuts through the bullshit, but also, if we're not careful, we can turn that sword on ourselves. And so we really want to be mindful of not doing that. So what we're going to be looking at today, it's not about like, oh my God, I've been living for everyone else, like, what's wrong with me, like going into a shame spiral. We're not going to be doing all of that. And I also want to say too, like, the propensity of that to happen is a hallmark of what's called toxic shame, which I've done a live stream on recently, which has been coming up a lot in my teachings because it's part of my own journey. And I happen to be have this book right here, Healing the Shame That Binds You by John Bradshaw. So that's a definite side topic, and I just want to bring that into the discussion now of, like, this is about looking at all of this with compassion and understanding and not making ourselves wrong for what we see, but just being very gentle. And, you know, if these are new awarenesses that are coming up, or if they're awarenesses that are being, like, revalidated, to use them with gentleness. In Buddhism, there's an idea that's called the second arrow. So the first arrow, like, is the thing or is the awareness, and the second arrow is when we then blame, shame ourselves for that thing. So we want to be mindful to do our best to not, you know, turn that second arrow in on ourselves. So what comes to mind for you all as we're diving into this topic? Where have you performed? Where have you pleased? Where have you found yourself almost unconsciously trying to meet invisible standards? One thing that helps me to get clear on this, like tangibly, and I talk about this often in my coaching and in live streams, is this idea of, are you in a fog? And fog is an acronym for fear, obligation, or guilt. So this is going to be a red flag for you to notice when you are carrying other people's expectations or doing things out of codependency is really what it is. And looking at, where are you doing something out of fear, obligation, or guilt? And that's going to be able to help point you like, oh wow, I'm not living for myself right now. I'm not making choices, decisions, or taking actions based on my own sovereignty. So that you can be mindful and stop living from duty or image. And again, if you're a parent, if you're in a partnership, if it's, official, if it's marriage, if it's just, some sort of defined partnership, allowing that, yes, of course, you're going to need to make your children's breakfast and things like that. And it's like this internal stance that you get to take. And if you come from toxic shame, then it's going to be really easy to be in this not enough, this obligation, this fog, this have to, this feeling of powerlessness. You might feel like a victim, and it's very disempowering. Hi, Christina. Yeah, and I have a couple coaching clients who have children that are about to transition out of the home or have transitioned, and all of that. And that is another layer of, looking at like the changing nature of a role and a relationship, and that's challenging. So, yeah, I'm just feeling into what wants to come up next around this topic. I feel like this can be really helpful for you all here to, again, go back to this question or this idea of that top regret of the dying. I wish I would have lived a life true to me rather than a life others expected of me. So if you think about that, where do you feel like a hit? Like, ooh, that hits. Do you feel that you are living a life others are expecting of you rather than a life that feels true for you? And what comes up for you around that? Because that's going to illuminate where you're living from others' expectations. And again, it might be people, it might be society, culture, religion. Wonderful, Michelle, and like that shows that this isn't black and white. Yeah. Hi, Rebecca. Doesn't want to disappoint anyone. Fear around earning love. So, that sounds like, and would you agree, Rebecca, that likely is rooted in childhood dynamics? That's what I see in what you're saying. and so that's when the inner child healing work comes in, which this book too, Healing the Shame That Binds You, is all about. Drazel, you're the one pouring the feeling of you're a burden on your mother. Okay. Oh, Barbara, wow, a 40-year marriage, living your life around his addiction. So I talked about in my last live stream or two this idea about codependency and co-addiction. So if there's an active addict, and it can be, spouse, parent, even child, if there's a parent that's addicted, like it could be anything, but that the person affected deeply by the other person's addiction is the co-addict, and they're basically also in an addictive pattern of wanting to fix the person's addiction. Hi, Jen. Thank you. Great to see you. Wonderful, Barbara. Yes, and all we can work with is right now, So if you think about, for others of you here that haven't thought about this, what expectations, whose expectations are you carrying right now? It might be conscious, it might be unconscious. And if you just feel into the energy of that, what do you notice in your body? I can say for myself that I'm proud of myself that I have not lived a life others expected of me. If I was living a life others expected of me, I would still be married. I would still be living in the same house I was living in when I was married, which was quite a long while ago now. I would still be in the same dead-end job that I was in back then. And I imagine I would be miserable as fuck. Just being very blunt. If I was living a life others expected of me. Now that doesn't mean I've made the best choices along the way, and many of you know that some of the details of my story, and I would definitely not be sitting here with you. I would not be the version of myself that I am today. Of course I'm not perfect. Of course I'm very flawed. And I was settling. I was making do. And I felt very diminished and what's the word I want to use? Uninspired. And just going through the motions. How many of you feel like you're going through the motions because you're putting what you really want on the back burner? And that's what I was doing. I mean, I was doing my best. And as are we all. Like, we all are where we are in the predicament that we're in because of choices and decisions and actions and habits and thoughts and behaviors and all of that. And it's like, and I know for me in that situation, I just kind of ended up there and kind of was like, oh, this is gonna be my life, okay. And I did my best, and I'm not blaming and shaming that version of myself. She was doing the best she could with what she had, as we all are in every moment. I got goats. And it wasn't conscious. It wasn't like I'm not happy and I'm miserable, so I'm going to go get goats. That's not how it occurred. It just unfolded. And my goats became my joy. And good for me. That's what happened, and that's what I needed. So, this isn't like this black and white thing. Nothing is. But looking back, I can see I was living a life others expected of me. And I was also comfortable in my comfort zone. It was an uncomfortable comfort zone, but there was some comfort there. Hi, Maeve. Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would need to know more of the dynamics, it sounds like. Yeah. There's so many things at play in relationships and life and addictions and codependency and, what drives us. Okay, Drazel. Good that you could notice this, pouring the feeling of being a burden to your mother onto your girls as the mother now. That's great that you can notice that pattern, the generational pattern. You're a cycle breaker. We are all cycle breakers here. That's why we're here. And yeah, Barbara, there's so many reasons and whys and things that keep us where we are. It's not simple and black and white. Financial reasons, comfortability, material things can definitely be something that keeps people together. And it's not wrong. It's just about, where is your soul calling you to? If you drop in to where you believe that infinite part, that divinity that's inside, that your soul, your spirit, your higher self, your inner being, if you all just tune into that, it will guide you. It will give you, it will be your compass on what you get to do in your specific situation. And as Abraham Hicks says, you can't get it wrong. And you can't get it wrong because you'll never get it done. Because we are on this constant, never-ending, infinite, upward spiral of soul evolution and awakening of consciousness. And if you believe, and this is just my belief, I'm not here to, convert anyone into my beliefs, I'm just sharing my own. I believe we are infinite beings and that we come here into this three-dimensional experience for that evolutionary purpose, because we can only experience things in this way, in this dimension. And so you can't get it wrong and you can never get it done means it's not one and done. You can't make a mistake because it's all learning. And because of it's who you become on this journey. I was talking to somebody in a coaching session. I can't remember if it was a client or somebody else I was in session with. We were talking about this, and I was talking about my own journey, as far as in addiction recovery, and then also in my career. because those two things have been the biggest transformations that have occurred. And it's, it's who the person that I've become, the version of Natalie that I've become as I've gone through every experience that I've had. I'm standing on each version's shoulders. The version of me that was in that marriage, I'm standing on her shoulders. Whatever the future version of me, will be standing on my shoulders now. So it's not a one and done. For me, I believe this isn't our only shot. Wonderful, Jen. Yes. You are worth it. Thank you so much for sharing that. And in my coaching that I do with people, we look at it's the dynamics of personal change and growth and development. And if it were easy to change, we would have all done it a long time ago, right? And if anybody thinks like they need to change, well, look at how damn hard it is to change your damn self. How hard is it to change somebody else? If you look at how hard it is to change your own self, right? So we can only work with what's here. And there's a lot of different mechanics that are in place in regards to personal change. That there's motivation, there's desire. There has to be the desire. And it sounds like, Jen, you're finally in the place where that the desire is greater than the pain and uncomfortability and the actions that will be required, right? Because if somebody's not ready for change, they'll look at what they have to do and be like, oh my God, that's too hard. And then they're okay with staying where they are, although it's painful. So when somebody's actually ready to change, this is the mechanics. The pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. When it's more painful to be where you are than to make those uncomfortable actions, then you will change. But if you're like, oh my God, that's too hard, that's going to take too much work, I'm not ready, then the pain of change is more painful than staying the same. So those have got to be flipped in order for somebody to really be ready. And it's not about good, bad, right, and wrong. It's just what is. So Christina, feeling codependency your entire life. It sounds like you have been through a lot. And, again, all the versions of yourself, everything that you've gone through, which sounds like a lot of really challenging situations, have led you to be where you are now. Speaking your voice, wonderful. Taking things one day at a time. Owning your choices and changing. And yes, Jen, the metric that life uses is action. Action is the thing that will create the results. Yes, we can read books. Yes, we can listen to talks. Yes, we can do meditations and visualizations. And the language of change in the real world is the actions. So if, as far as bringing it back to like the costs of carrying others' expectations, not living a life true to yourself, but rather a life others expected of you, the thing that matters is going to be the actual actions and things that you do every day. Wonderful, Drazel. I love that. Taking steps to create sovereign boundaries. And that's true. That's a great point, Drazel, because on this path that we're talking about, people will either grow or go. And this could be even in a marriage or in a work environment or a friendship. But if somebody is on a path of transformation and change, especially in the closest relationships, the other people, if they're not growing with you, they will go. And it will happen naturally, right? And it can be painful. And that's the nature of change, right? Everything changes. Hi, Orchid. Great to see you. It's been a while. Right. So, hi, Sashi. Hope I'm saying that right. So, question is, if keeping everything the same is more painful than changing, then why do very few people change? Because they're stuck in their comfort zone. Because if you're in this place where you feel stuck and you're tolerating things and you don't feel you're living your life for yourself, it's known. You know it very well. So whatever the dynamics are, we all have our own, but whatever it is, you know it. You can predict it. It's familiar, it's comfortable, it's known. So even though it might be very painful, you know what to expect in a way. And then there's no surprises. And then you get to be right about it. Whatever limiting beliefs you might have, you get to be right. This always happens. There they go again. I knew they would do this. I knew I would do this. I know that, I'd let myself down, whatever the stories are. You get to be right. So that means if you're going to change, it's the unknown. You don't know what will occur. If you've never gotten a result before in your life that you've wanted, it's going to take you becoming a version of yourself that you don't know to be able to get here. Like for me, to be here right now, oh my gosh, like all of the things I've had to do, that version that was married, I got married actually 20 years ago this year. But it's unfathomable. Like that version of me had no idea. It didn't even know this reality existed. That version of myself, honestly. If Natalie 20 years in the future were to go back to 2006 and be like, hey, guess what your life is going to be like? You're going to be, an expat for 13 years and, lived all over the world and, be serving and supporting others and having your own business and done all the amazing things you've done and be teaching on an app or whatever. Like that version of Natalie would be like, that's not possible. I would have thought it wasn't possible. So in order for us to change, there's got to be these actions we take that we've never taken in order to get a different result that we've never gotten. And that's what I help people with in my coaching practice. So many of you have heard me offer this, and while I still have spots available, I offer this visioning process where we will look at all of these mechanics that we're talking about today, for you specifically. We will get very specific on your stuck places, your comfort zone, where you're tolerating things, what you're afraid of, and then what do you want and how to get there. And it's a process I offer as a gift, so there's no strings attached, there's no cost if you've never had a session with me before. So if this is resonating and you feel that nudge from your soul, send me a message. So what does it cost us when we live for everyone else? We have less energy, of course. We're not authentic. How many of you can relate to masking in the world? We're exhausted physically, emotionally, we're bleeding energy, we don't feel creative. And if you're masking, if you're not showing up authentically, you might feel a sense of shallow belonging. You may not feel truly seen because you're not truly seen, because you're not being authentic. So it's like conditional and it can feel lonely. And again, this isn't something to beat yourself up for. And as far as like expectations goes, if we're going to break this pattern, you are going to disappoint people, period. So I know somebody earlier in the chat was talking about like earning love. Rebecca, it was. So in those dynamics, you have got to get comfortable with disappointing others. And if you're coming from toxic shame and you're allowing that wounded inner child to make your adult decisions, then you're going to feel terrified to disappoint others, and you're going to go along with everyone else's expectations because that wounded part is calling the shots and wants to feel safe. But I want to tell you something, all of you. Adults can handle disappointment. And I want you to remember that. Adults can handle disappointment. And if they can't, they're emotionally immature, which many are. And it's not about labeling others. But if you are a child of an emotionally immature parent, likely you also have some of those traits. I do. My parents are very emotionally immature, bless their hearts. And adults can handle disappointment. That Mel Robbins book, Let Them theory. Let them be disappointed. Hey Trish, thank you Orchid for the donation. And yeah, there can be grief once you start seeing things and awakening. There can definitely be grief. And that's the wounded child that's sad that their family could not, meet their needs. And that little child is going to be in this open loop of waiting for parents or whatever, siblings, primary caretakers to change. And they will not change. Or we can't rely on that. So we are the ones we've been waiting for. So when that gets activated and you notice that grief, then that's where you get to be like, you get to step in as the parent that you've waited for. And you're the only one that can do this. Nobody else can do this for you. You don't have to do it alone, but nobody else can do this inner work inside of you. Ooh, wow, Christina, you've let them tattooed on your forearm. Love it. And yes, go ahead and send me a message. I can offer you that visioning process I mentioned. It's a gift, as I said. And, you know, people, if you want to reach out, you can do so here through, of course, messaging and Insight Timer, also Facebook, Instagram, website, and that's all in my About section. So, wonderful. So, a deep cost of carrying everyone else's expectations is soul fatigue. Soul fatigue. Ooh, feel into that. How many of you feel like your soul is fatigued? How many of you feel like you've lost touch with your own inner guidance? Thank you, Jen. Thank you so much. Barbara. And just even speaking it out loud and allowing yourself to be seen in this space is a step of illuminating and coming out of the shadows with this. Ooh, wonderful, Orchid. So letting go of other people's expectations isn't rebellion, it's devotion and coming home to yourself. And it doesn't mean you have to like leave your spouse tomorrow, okay? I mean, you get to discern and feel into your own situation, and it doesn't have to be this big, bold action. It can be, and it also could be the tiniest next step. And that's what I work with too, with people in my clients that I work with in coaching. You get to that big step with the tiny action. You know, if I think about all the steps and actions I had to take, like I said, in my own transformational journey to get here, wow, there's so many. But it all started with something very small. And even like, I like to call it a micro action. So say it might be leaving a spouse or something. What would the first step be? Opening your laptop. That would be the first step. The next step would be opening a browser. The next step would be putting something in the search bar to find out what the step would be, right? So that's what I mean, like these micro actions, because the big action feels overwhelming at times. And yes, Orchid, that's another piece of it, not returning to the actions that created all of this in the first place. And it's going to be messy. I mean, oh my gosh, the messiness of my journey, and many of you have heard about some of my messiness. You know, 1 step forward, 2 steps back. Growth, we think it's like this. Our mind wants it to look like just this straight upward path. No. If you are zoomed out, it looks like this. If you zoom in, it looks like this. So as far as if you think about the expectations that you're living into, where are you living in a fog? Where are you acting out of fear, obligation, and guilt? What would the tiniest step be? It might not be like declaring in your family chat thread, like, I'm out. I am no longer in this family. It might be, a tiny action. And you can't afford to pour your energy into maintaining everyone else's story about who you should be. Freedom begins when you decide your life belongs to you. And that's what I have done in my own life. And I can speak directly to this. And there is no doubt in my mind, if I'm on my deathbed now, I have lived a life true to myself and not a life others expected of me. And no, I'm not proud of everything I've done to do that and to get there. And I feel good about me living my own life. And not living, sure, I still get into fog, of course. I'm human, and in the biggest of ways. If I was doing things because of other people's expectations, as I said, I would still be married. And I would have never left the country of North Carolina. And I would still be going to visit my parents when I didn't want to, and I would still be doing holiday activities out of obligation when I had no desire to. I don't do any of that. And I'm not saying if I would, it would make me bad or wrong. It's just different. And this is what I've chosen, and this is my choice. So we're going to do a little visualization here, or not little. In my coaching sessions, I always stop people when they do that. Oh, I'm just writing this little book, or I wrote this little poem, or I painted this little painting. I always stop people because that word little is the brain diminishing and making themselves small. So we are going to do an amazing, huge visualization right now for a moment. We'll just take a few minutes. So I want you all just to settle in and close your eyes. And just feel into the body and drop in. Notice gravity. And I want you to imagine you're wearing a backpack, and it's filled with everyone's expectations of you. Maybe parents, family, partners, society, maybe even old versions of yourself or parts of you that have expectations, and there's a backpack on your back that's filled with all of these expectations. And just feel the heaviness of it. And you might notice in your mind as, maybe there are different rocks or different weights or whatever all of those are. And with your next exhale, I want you to imagine you're sliding that backpack off and just setting it down beside you. And just feel the difference. Feel how that feels. And I want you now to inhale deeply and just bring light into your body from above, from source, from your higher self. And that is the energy of your own truth and your own power returning. And just feel that sovereignty. Feel that freedom. Feel what it's like. I want you to now imagine you're stepping away from the backpack and you're leaving it behind and you're walking away. And feel what it's like to move without that weight and leaving that behind you. And it's now beyond the horizon. You've walked so far that the backpack is totally out of sight. And you've left it behind forever. And just feel your body, your shoulders, the light of your own truth. And you can slowly open your eyes. And I want you to share how it feels now and what that was like for you. What did you discover in that visualization? Maybe it was super easy and you skipped away from the backpack, or maybe you felt like you didn't want to leave it or even put it down. There's no right or wrong. It's just good to notice. Yeah. So Jen saying 8 of Cups energy. So it's a heavy energy of disappointment, of leaving something behind. It's not skipping away. And that's okay. And just noticing that, and you can be with yourself. So what becomes possible when you stop carrying what's not yours? And what is an expectation that you're ready to release this week? Again, it could be the tiniest step toward releasing the expectation, or it might be a big, bold action. There's no right or wrong here. And if you want support around this, as I said, I offer my powerful visioning process where we can look at all of this. And every time that you put down what isn't yours, you reclaim your own energy and your own truth. And that's how you cultivate your authenticity. Not by adding more, but by releasing and shedding what's not yours. Ooh, Barbara, what a beautiful visual. In a rainforest, feeling raindrops of being truly present. I love that. Thank you for sharing. So you're not here on this planet in this time. We did not incarnate at this specific time to live someone else's story. We have done that for generations. And we needed to do that to get where we are. So again, if you feel the call to reach out, if you want to explore this more deeply, send me a message, and the avenues that, my website or here in Insight Timer, Facebook, Instagram message. All of that. I also have a new Etsy store. It's called Heartbreak Recovery Co. And it's a lot of digital workbook resources to help with toxic relationship recovery. And I do also have a codependency recovery workbook there, because a lot of this ties into codependency as well. So I would appreciate if that resonates with you. I'm just building my shop, so any purchase, any reviews really help. Everything is very reasonably priced. So if you are open to that, please go over there, or you can send a message if you want the link. Wow, Drazel. Amazing. How powerful. Thank you for sharing that. Wonderful, Barbara. Jen, sending loving to you. Hi, S. So I'll just type the name in here of my shop. Thank you, Barbara, for the donation. And yeah, and thank you, S, for trying to find it. And you can send me a private message too, and I could send the link. Thank you, Deirdre. Wonderful to have all of your presence today for this very powerful session. I do have, let's see what we have coming up. Wait a minute. Okay. Ooh, the next one is similar but different, our next live stream. So you'll want to join if this was powerful. How to stop abandoning yourself in the name of others. How to stop abandoning yourself in the name of others. So join for that, April 15th, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. And if you follow me here, you'll be notified of all my live streams. I've got them scheduled for a month upcoming. I go live every Sunday morning. I think I'm going to change the time a little. I'm still kind of doing some different times on Sundays to find what's best. I think I will change the upcoming ones to a little bit earlier. So what that means, if you've RSVP'd, I have to make a whole new event. If you change the date and time, or even if you just try and change the time, you have to create the event again. So you'll see that. Thank you, Drazel, J.E., and Jen, and everybody who's joined. And I will see you all very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Much love and namaste.